Record.
Welcome back to another one of our Section 80 Survey for Science podcast. I'm Adriana Green, and I'm here with Tien Nguyen and Kiara Moreno. In today's podcast, we will take a little time digging deeper into today's generation of getting a fair and speedy trial. We will be discussing the Innocence Project's mission and insight on a specific case that struck the country to believe that 5 young men were all the criminals to a jogger jogging on the trails of Central Park in New York City in 1989.
This is Kiara. Let's begin. The Innocence Project is a nonprofit organization of lawyers and advocates who field requests from friends, family, and incarcerated people themselves and take on cases to prove people's innocence. Founded in 1992 by Peter Dufall and Barry Schreck at Cardozo School of Law in New York, the goal of the Innocence Project is to exonerate people who are wrongly convicted into prison and reform the criminal justice system. One of the ways the Innocence Project works to exonerate individuals is through DNA testing. By improving policing and the police investigations, the Innocence Project can reduce the risk of false arrests and improve the failing judicial system. This project alone has helped free more than 2,500 wrongly convicted people that have been exonerated in the U.S. over the past 3 decades, and by DNA testing alone, they've helped free 375 people in the U.S.
But why do you think there is a connection to forensic science?
We learned that there are 5 major reasons why innocent people are convicted. It's witness misidentification, misconduct or improper forensic science, false confessions, government misconduct, and bad lawyers. In 1989, 5 African-American teenagers were wrongfully convicted and sentenced to life prison for being accused of raping and beating a 28-year-old white woman who was jogging at the park. The victim name was Trisha Malay. She was found naked and was brutally beaten on April 20 at the Central Park. Because the teenagers were hanging at the park during the time that Trisha was found, the investigator assumed they were criminals. On the contrary, the teenagers' DNA did not match to the crime scene DNA. The teenagers served in prison for 6 to 12 years until rapist confessed his crime. The DNA of the rapist, Matthias Reyes, was positive DNA matched to evidence found at the crime scene. In 1991, 4 of 5 were released from prison. In 2001, the 5th member, Corey Wise, would join them. The teenagers who were being accused are Atron McCrae, 15, Kevin Richardson, 15, Yusuf Salam, 15, Raymond Santana, 14, and Corey White, 16, who came to be known as the Central Park 5.
The Central Park 5 changes the system of forensic science by exposing the fundamental injustice in our legal system. It exposes the laziness and true colors of the New York Police Department by how convinced the department was that even with quote-unquote no evidence, they were so quick to accuse 5 young men to all be the rapists of one single female. NYPD failed in performing the new forensic technique at the time, DNA testing, by performing a rape kit right away on Trisha towards the 5 young men. I mean, the fact that Corey Wise, at the age of 16, was immediately sent to an adult prison to serve his time when he wasn't even a suspect on the scene that night. He was simply being a good friend of Yusuf, agreeing to go downtown to the police station with him to be questioned.
The case exposed that forensic testing wasn't clear and sufficient, and forensic investigators must have the integrity to conduct their job instead of following the case and proceed to falsify testing results. This case leads to a high demand on verifying test results, gathering evidence sufficiently to help identify the right suspects. In regards to the Central Park 5, that clearly was not the case. The state of New York failed to do their job, resulting in the loss of 5 young men spending 6 to 12 years in prison. Although the focus today is about the lack of evidence gathering, there is still an underlying misconception that these young men were subject to because of their appearance and the color of their skin. This goes to show why the Innocence Project was a program that needed to be created. Corey Wise, one of the young men who were falsely convicted of the Central Park 5 jogger case, had the opportunity of being exonerated after serving 11 and a half years in prison. This was due to the fact that the creation of DNA was now an option for being tested. More of the story, because there was no sufficient way to properly indicate whether or not these young men actually committed this crime, they suffered. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed our podcast.